Republican presidential nominee, Senator John McCain. So, may I still call you J-Mac, or do I have to call you Mr. Senator now?
Anything you would like, Whoopi.
Now, I have a very straightforward question.
Good.
Because I'm curious about your choice for vice president. Do you believe in the separation of church and state?
Sure.
So if you believe in the separation of church and state, did it not give you a moment of pause that Sarah Palin, should she, God forbid, anything happen to you, not have the same beliefs as you do about these things? Does that not give you a little bit of pause?
Whoopi, I read the statements of our founding fathers. Abraham Lincoln, she quoted, we shouldn't pray for God to be on our side, but for us to be on God's side. Judeo-Christian values were the foundation of our nation. In God we trust. Clearly a belief that God has a plan for the world and that we should do what we can to live as good lives as we can and trust that God, in God we trust, will guide this nation and this world to a better existence.
If you don't believe
God, you're entitled to that, not believing in God. But I think we should respect the views of those who believe in God and believe that we are a special nation, and it's a special world, and we believe that God does play a role, not in whether we win or lose elections, but whether we have a better world and a better future and better lives. So I think that's, I've said that many times, that I believe, because I have a fundamental faith, but I've always prayed, frankly, in prison. I would tell my friends, not that we'd get out of prison, but whether it would be God's will for us to get out of prison, because we were doing Caesar's work.
Right. No, I understand one's faith, but my question really goes to the greater part of the nation. Yes, we have Christian Judeo beliefs, but we also have Muslims in this country, we have Zoroastrians in this country, we have Wiccans in this country. And so my
Zoroastrian.
Yes.
Thank you. Good to see you.
But my question really goes to, can you, as the president, should you win, can you govern this nation? Anybody who takes that seat, are you to govern this nation as God would have you do it, or do you govern this nation for the greater good of the people in it? And that's why I asked, do you believe in the separation of church and state? One of the reasons people stopped praying in schools is because we suddenly had so many different religions that one religion could not take over. Do you think that's a good idea?
I think everybody obviously is entitled to their individual faith and their beliefs, including not believing in anything. But I pray every day for guidance and to do the right thing and not succumb to temptation and not be an imperfect servant and to do what is in the best interest of the country rather than Let me just say again, I am an imperfect person.
No.
And whoops, I opened myself for that one. But
that's the next ad.
But the point is, I respect those people that don't think that they need spiritual guidance and help. I just happen to be one of those who does.
Right.
But I don't think that would interfere.
That's fine. I just want to make sure.
There's also a question that has been burning amidst voters, especially our viewers, and that is a question of Roe v. Wade. And as president, if you were, no softballs coming from me, even though you have my vote, would you as president work to overturn that? And then would Sarah Palin be working to overturn Roe v. Wade?
I think what we'd be doing is appointing or nominating justices to the United States Supreme Court and other courts who strictly interpret the Constitution of the United States. We would not impose a litmus test on any issue, because that's not fair to the American people. But they would have to have a clear record of strict interpretation.
That's a kind of other way of saying people who would want to overturn Roe v. Wade.
That is saying that I believe Roe v. Wade was a very bad decision, Barbara. I think it was a bad decision. But I've thought that other I've thought that other decisions of the United States Supreme Court were bad decisions. But I want people on the court, and quote, do interpret, and not just on the issue of Roe v. Wade, but on many other issues that I think.
Do I need to be worried about becoming a slave again?
My interpretation of the Constitution of the United States is that the United States Supreme Court enforces the Constitution of the United States and does not legislate nor invent areas that are the responsibilities, according to the Constitution, of the legislative branch.
It was in how the law came up. It was in how Roe v. Wade came apart. That's the issue. You want it to be through the Constitution, from the people, not from the bench. It's a
and I believe that if Roe v. Wade were overturned, then the states would make these decisions.
Yes.
And
Sir, can you just, and I don't want to misinterpret what you're saying. Did you say you wanted strict constitutionalists? Because
No, I want people who interpret the Constitution of the United States the way our founding fathers envisioned for them to do.
Should I be worried about being a slave, being returned to slavery? Because certain things happened in the Constitution that you had to change.
I understand your point.
Okay.
I understand that point, and I get it. Thank you.
Okay, before we go,
That's an excellent point.
Thank you, sir.
before we go, just to give a different picture to you, because you talk.
She's scared.
Picturing herself on the plantation.
I got scared. I had to start running.
Look, you and Shelley, we'll take care of you. Us white folk, we'll take care of you. Okay, let me just.
Could I also say that I have committed myself to a pro-life position because I happen to believe that life begins at conception. But that is an issue that I respect other people's views on. But we have to, in my view, that I believe that pro-life is a position that I have held.
Yes.
But I also respect the views of those who don't.
So you believe in choice, then? Let me just go on to it, because our time is limited. But we have something.
Let's move on.
Okay, we're going to move on. Okay. So we understand that there's newly released footage of your return as a POW in Vietnam in 1973. It has just come out. Have you seen it?
I saw just a snippet of it on the
Well,
news,
we'd
but I
like to
didn't
show
see
it to you
Thanks.
and ask you how you feel when you see this, Senator. It must bring back such memories. What you're feeling?
What he's thinking.
I guess, I was thinking that, thank God, I'm returning home of the obvious emotions that you might think, but I also was so proud to have my comrades, so many of them, survive and come home with me, and it was a grand moment. And my experience in prison changed me from a person who was basically a person who was interested in self-glory and pride and a lot of things like that, and my country changed. My view of my country and my role in life was dramatically changed to serve my country in a cause greater than my self-interest. So when you look at the tough times I had, it also, in many ways, was a good experience for me, and I served in the company of heroes.
Wow. You certainly are. One more question, Senator, following this. Just one last question following this, please. A friend of mine brought this up, and I'd never thought of it before. But if you are in prison and the authorities say you're out, you don't get a choice. You're out. So what we wonder is, when they gave you a choice, which is unusual, if they had wanted to embarrass your father, the admiral, why didn't they just say you're out? Why would they give you a choice? That's so unusual.
They didn't want to do that because they know that if they'd have done it that way, I'd have said, look, I didn't ask to leave. That was not a choice of mine. I didn't want to violate our code of conduct. That would have destroyed the propaganda value of saying that he accepted our kind offer of relief to release the
right
thing. Because it was a propaganda.
When we come back, Republican presidential nominee Senator John McCain will be joined by his wife, Cindy. And as I said, we'll be right back.